I'm Shane Nyland, and my co host is Blake Musser. And these stories you're about to hear are from Weapons Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, 1st Marine Division, about the events surrounding and directly from the mouths of the people who were in Ramadi 2004. This is part 2 of our conversation with Paul Hess from Mobile Assault Platoon 1.
With Cackley stuck in my head, I remember a similar night mission, probably the same time of night, where I even dismounted further away and was with him. And you've probably gotten plenty of these stories where you got to drop trowel, like it's time. There's no, And I remember Cackley, right? Like we come to a screeching halt, and it seemed like the longest shit ever.
Yeah.
It's like, when are we going to keep?
Yeah. That's a side effect of eating all them MREs, man.
Absolutely.
Lock you up forever.
Yeah, and when it's time with those, nothing's stopping it.
No, that's a freight train, that's for sure.
Yeah. So we've mentioned Oliver North a few times. So how about, a couple names wise, remember when Dan Rather was on Hurricane Point?
So I don't remember when he was there. I do remember seeing the videos. I did not ever see him. But yeah, I do remember he came.
Yeah, so this was nuts. So we were in front of the castle or the palace, and we were actually, I believe, in some type of a even formation. I think someone, some type of word was being passed. Rather's right there with the Humvees. Excuse me. And we start like the mortar fire starts to come. And so, man, we pissed off Merarchy because a lot of us took off running to the Hooches, ready to thinking, we're going to have to load up and right, go find them, whatever. And man, we got an earful of you never fucking run, right? Like blah 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 blah. But yeah, I always thought that was cool. I mean, growing up, right? Like to me, Dan Rather was the face of the news growing up. That was my childhood of just if something was happening, it was his face on the TV. And so I remember thinking, damn, if he's here at Hurricane Point, there's probably a lot of things we haven't been told.
Yeah.
So I always thought that was super cool. And then of course, so Ollie North, he was there. And so he literally was in my vehicle, jumped in the Jackass, the high back. What were we? Black 1, black 2, black 3, red 1, red 2, and then the Humvee. Do you guys remember or the high back was Anthony, Sergeant Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
He was the vehicle commander, and then the call sign for that vehicle was Jackass.
Yeah.
So Kern jumps in with Jackass, and Ollie North was riding right behind me. And we're out in the city somewhere, and mortar fire, and it's landing pretty close. Dude, it was the coolest thing. It was like he was back in Vietnam. He's calling the show. Mortars, pull off here. We pull over, we dismount, and it was just the coolest thing. Hearing him some type of switch within him, switch, and just verbally hearing him, I was like,
yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, he whipped it on in Vietnam, so
yeah. Because there's pictures of him on base and having his Fox News microphone, and I think there's plenty of pictures floating around of him taking pics with guys. So it was kind of cool, to have some profile names like that around. And
big time.
Man, here's something for you. So because some of those pictures I remember seeing with Ollie North over at the Palace, the moment that I realized, wow, at the time, First Sergeant Ellis was a bad motherfucker. Was just, I'm over there like at the phone trailer or whatever, calling home, right?
Oh,
But
mhm.
like I just saw this guy from one problem to the next problem to the next problem, just getting shit done. And I didn't even know his name at the time, but I just remember thinking he's a bad, like he's a badass. Um, and so of course you got the stories from him and Booker, right? Like um, some of the things that went down in Ramadi.
Yeah.
Um, some of the guys can tell those stories better than I, but yeah, like this jumps ahead, not of Ramadi, but Ellis. He, that's the toughest one that hurts, that I struggle with to this day. Is it was either same day or day before, with the suicide bomber. We were moving from a temporary fob to the abandoned train station, and he and uh, I was a sergeant at the time. There was definitely a lot of he respected me a lot, and we probably talked for 10 minutes about what he was going to do after the deployment, and walk me through retirement and what his kids were up to and stuff, and that I still have a tough time compartmentalizing that.
Mm.
But yeah, so but it was cool getting to see him like do his thing in Ramadi, right? Just to see him. Uh, what do you guys remember from him even prior to Ramadi? Like prior to Ramadi, was he ever in weapons company with you guys, or was he
Nope.
always at the battalion level?
So if I and I could be wrong, but if I remember correctly, he was in charge of comm over at Recon,
Yeah, yeah,
and then he came to us and went straight to be the first sergeant in charge of the H&S battalion.
yeah, yeah,
That is
yeah,
also my memory.
Yeah,
yeah.
and so we had no real interaction with him. I didn't before Ramadi. I don't think I had ever even really met him much, and then I ended up meeting him and Major Wiley and all the H&S, like all the headquarters people during Ramadi, like going over to the palace for briefs. I don't think I knew anything about him before that.
Yeah.
I know him
Yeah.
a little bit more just because I had 81s has a little bit more of a comm situation, so I was in the comm shop a little bit more than
Right.
the average bear due to my position. But
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I
yeah,
remember when
yeah.
I watched him just jumping from fire to fire, he also like just he was relatable, right? Like,
Oh yeah, definitely.
yeah, yeah. Um,
very relatable. He's a great guy.
all right, guys, help me out. Steer me in the right direction. Where's the good spot to go?
Let's jump into the battle, man.
Yeah, so from my notes here, the Battle of Ramadi, people were moving into the city, and the first casualty we had was from my platoon. We had Morris that got hit then basically the night before.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, our platoon went out to search the area where Morris got killed and do some other stuff. And then your platoon set up for a cordon and knock. And you guys ended up picking up the Farhan brothers, who were from the Republican Guard. They ended up being some of the leaders of what was the insurgency that was moving into town. Any memories of that particular raid? Because that was kind of a pivotal moment as far as that goes. And those guys were a big deal. I not 100% sure because I haven't checked the deck, but I believe I remember people saying they were in that deck of cards of like the most wanted people, or at least one of them was.
Uh-huh. Um, and that mission, like this is that first mission on the 6th, like that cordon took place like early, right? Like
Super early in the morning. Yeah,
four
you
in the
guys,
morning or
but
something
before,
crazy.
yep, right before the sun came up. You guys were pulling in with the high value targets when the sun came up.
Yeah, what I remember is I'm further away from the vehicle and just up against the wall. And it was even before we left Hurricane Point, it was imminent, right? Like you kept getting the word, it's imminent, it's imminent. Um, so that was another kind of real moment of where your imagination starts to just like you're running through, a million scenarios in your head of just being ready and like, what you might see and all this. And I remember up against this wall and, star cluster or whatever, right? Like, and just to be in battle and to see it live for the first time, that sky light up like it was daytime, right? It lit the sky so bright that it was like, I remember thinking, okay, now it's imminent. Like,
Yeah. Everybody knows we're here for sure.
Right? Yeah.
We just turned on the lights.
Yeah. But the funny thing is, a lot of that is so foggy that because we were disappointed, map one was disappointed when everything started to go down with the line companies. We had this feeling of disappointment that we didn't run into anybody anywhere, and it was this feeling of like we didn't help. Um, so there was a lot of disappointment from that, because at some point, the other part was other weapons company units were getting called out, right? Like, I don't think we definitely weren't on day missions, and I don't even know if we were on QRF. But like finally, like platoon after platoon keeps leaving, and finally we're up in the chute, lined up, right? Like vehicles ready to go, running, and then it never happened. And so we were really disappointed that day. Um, but my experience goes from uh, I feel like it would have been the same day when Echo took all those casualties, and we were out driving around trying to see if we could, find stragglers or just, whatever. And then in the Sophia area, down by the river, there's like we see people crossing the street. There's at least 5 or 6 guys, but they looked like young 20s teenagers, like young. And we barrel off onto the side street, and I dismount and I run up there and lay down, and I'm watching these guys go across this field. And it was like they had a cooler and 2 people are carrying it, right? Like if you have a heavy cooler, one on each side. And I'm not liking the way, because they're just coming down from this road. It's like, holy fuck, were they just burying IEDs? So
Or
you're
carrying
seeing,
ammo. That was a very common tactic for carrying ammo. Yeah.
okay. So, I'm seeing this happen, knowing just what happened earlier in the day, and we're pissed off because we didn't feel like, we were able to help. And I'm watching this happen, and and then they cross that field and get behind the corner of like a concrete wall, and then they're sticking their head out every few seconds, sticking their head around, and I'm like, what the fuck is going on? You know, and and this is a part where whoever's laying next to me, I told them, the next motherfucker that sticks their head around the corner, I'm dropping their ass. And someone stuck their head around, I pulled the trigger, and needless to say, no one ever stuck their head around the corner again.
Good.
But yeah. So I think some of that memory there fogged up a lot of what went down. All of that other stuff's foggy, right? And the fact that we weren't in a huge firefight that during it. So that's kind of my recollection. And then fast forward to a couple days later, right at the ceremony at Combat Outpost.
Yeah.
That sticks out, right? Like, those the makeshift what would you call it? With the rifles and the dog tags and the boots.
Yeah, the memorial ceremony out there on
Yeah.
that was Easter Sunday.
Yes, yep. So yeah, man, it's hard to piece all that together, but that's definitely a big memory. The overall tone, though, for me is still, even though 2-4 kicked some major ass, we took we took a bad beating, and there's still this feeling of like, man, not feeling like I wish I could have done more, right? Like there's a sense of fuck.
I, I think that is a more common sentiment than you realize. And just from interviews that we've done so far, but even just conversations I've had over the last 20 years with other people, I feel like almost everybody says something like that, and they have some random story, very similar to your guys poking their head around a corner, where they're like, "I should have done this. That probably would have made a difference. Like I should have done this, or I should have done that." And it's weird to me thinking back because I've felt that way too. But trying to zoom out 10,000 feet and look at it from above, you were in heavy combat, man.
Yeah,
it's not like you weren't
yeah,
ever.
yeah,
And given any other deployment, everything you guys did would be considered heavy engagement, a heavy combat for any other deployment. So just this particular deployment being like, oh, well, I didn't shoot anybody on the 6th it's a weird, I don't know. It's a weird
yeah,
thing,
yeah.
but I've
But
heard
it's
that from a
guilt,
few
right?
people.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's guilt of just, all man, we lost so many guys,
Yeah.
like,
Yep.
yeah, but no, that's a good way it's kind of like you said, it's sometimes you got to take the macro, you got to back up and take the macro
For sure.
view for sure. Um, Trying to think of any other things I might have glazed over that I was wanting to tell you guys about that little time period there. Um,
Well, now
yeah.
I know maybe you didn't go out on the 6th, but did you guys end up going out on the 7th? I feel like I remember you did go out on the 7th
So,
for
and
sure.
that's what the story I told. That's probably when
The
that went
7th. Yeah,
down.
yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And then
Um,
the 8th wasn't much. It was Operation County Fair. I don't think anybody got into anything. Like we found a
yeah.
couple field hospitals. There was nothing much after that. But the next one was the first big bug hunt, and I feel like you guys were on the inner portion of that.
Okay.
Maybe not. You'll have to tell me. But that was April 10th, and so that was when every single platoon was out. That was, I mean, even people that were on guard. We left a skeleton crew, and we took everyone.
But a lot was
we put the motor pool on the towers.
That's what I mean. We took
Yeah.
everyone.
So, with bug hunt, like, was that a day where a lot of stuff was happening? Because I'm mixing up, like, I'm thinking back to Joker 1, the book,
Mm-hmm.
and like, like I think I've read it and I've listened to it, and so like I'm kind of getting all these things intertwined. But you triggering saying that we were on an interior situation there. I do remember I was with the truck, so I was dismounted and keeping more of a watch out. But man, I remember the guys in the platoon, the dismounts, were tired because they just house to house to
Yeah.
house to rooftop.
That was a long day.
Like,
It was
yeah.
14 hours. And if you heard any line company guys say it, that was their day of retribution, really. It started out, or as soon as the sun rose, we had the army trucks with the big speakers on top. And we had the first truck was the interpreter who was yelling over it, "You are a bunch of cowards. We're gonna, all kinds of stuff in Arabic, right? And saying like, come out and fight us like men. You can't fight us because you're too weak." And then the second truck playing heavy metal music, playing Slayer and Drowning Pool, among other songs.
Man, I don't, wow, that's something I learned new. And man, to go back and to be a fly on the wall and to get to hear that, dude, I'd pay money to.
Yeah. Well, so we weren't. My particular platoon was on the south end of the cordon. Musser's platoon, Sledgehammer, was the west and north corner. I feel like Map 3 was the north edge. I feel like you guys were part of the inner element, but mostly it was the line companies. But I feel like you guys were the inner element and you were attached with the CO. And the only reason why I say that is because the CO got on that stupid speaker at one point and started yelling himself. So, Captain
Love it.
Weiler.
I love it. Yeah, that's what I remember I mean, sticking with the truck so much, like I remember days, 8, 12 hour days at a street corner, right? Of like switching knees, left knee,
Yeah.
right
Oh,
knee,
yeah.
just so, but I just remember like the guys, just one of the tiredest I'd ever seen the guys for sure.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no, like when you think about like, say like Joker 1 and hearing you guys talk, like that's the day, right, where the taxis were going nuts. Um, insurgents and taxis getting lit up and just
Yep.
mass chaos around the whole city, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Um, were there any from Bug Hunt? Bug Hunt didn't produce any major cachets. That was more or less just an all-out fight, right?
So some of the first big weapons cache that we found were from the bug hunt. Like
Okay.
that was where we found a few houses that were stocked full of things and more medical supplies, and we found a lot of dead and wounded. Later bug hunts, the second, third, fourth bug hunt. I think the second bug hunt officially was June 1st, but other operations that were similar to that were the other big weapons caches. You guys are the ones that pulled out all the stuff on June 1st, if you remember
Okay.
that one. I specifically remember you guys posing with all the weapons. So that's why I remember you guys did a lot of the door kicks on that one.
I remember just seeing the line from in front of the Hooch, the CO Hooch, the whole sidewalk lined with weapons. That
Mhm.
that still sticks out in my head. It was just like, holy cow. The other cachet that sticks out in my head, and I might be crossing wires with Barwana, but I remember one time we found these three, I don't even know how you would describe them, some type of barrels, big ass barrels buried,
Mhm.
just filled to the brim near like a body of water. Um, but that's what blows my mind hearing you say earlier, like, oh, well, coolers, very common to transport, ammunition or weapons that way. Like just the different means of just,
Oh yeah.
stockpiling weapons. And yeah, I remember Santiago took us over. Remember the makeshift range on Hurricane Point, our little shooting range? And one day we fired AKs, and I remember the handguards just getting, hot as a mofo. Within, you fire a few rounds, and those handguards are just on fire.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, no. So here's something that sticks out, and it would have been after later in the summer, but if I've hit one of those points where if I don't tell you, I'll forget. Um, so we were on QRF, and I think the Army was coming down Michigan, and they got flanked. Um, uh, they got caught in an ambush, and so we went out there, and so we flanked the ambush, and um, I actually left the vehicle and joined up with a few guys. This would have been after we had combat replacements.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so, we're working our way, and the muzzle flashes, they're up in like a 3-story building,
Mhm.
and they're just, firing down the street. Um, and we're working down both sides of the street along those concrete walls. And we get to this one corner where we determine, let's put an AT4 into the building. We gotta, slow these guys down. Um, And so our combat replacement, Sergeant Meta, he runs out in the middle of the intersection and he has an AT4 and he can't get the sucker to cock. He's messing with it for a while. And he looks over at me and he's like, Hess, waves me over. I'm like, oh shit. So I run out there and I'm thinking to myself, if he can't get this thing, what the hell am I going to do? Like, what, we're
Yeah.
wasting time, right? Like, what's
Yeah.
going on? Like, So I started tinkering with it. And those like the tow missiles and the AT4s, they're riding around in these dusty Humvees.
Well,
Of course they're in awful condition, right? Like because they're filled with sand.
And some of them were old.
yeah,
Like
I was going to say
old. They're from the 90s.
yeah, we had
Yeah.
two tow missiles that had 88 stamped on them, and I was like, okay, yeah, fuck it, we'll fire them.
So I'm messing with it, and the muzzle flight, right? The bullets are whizzing, and all of a sudden I hear a click. I'm like, oh shit. Throw it up on my shoulder and bad place there, secure. Boom. Put a hole in the building or whatever. I can't hear shit, right? Like you don't call time out and throw in Hearing Pro. For 3 days, I couldn't hear anything out of my right ear. And so, by the time I don't think we had to push any further because at that point, other dismounts had already gotten there and, like they had fled or whatever. But I just remember taking that shot in the hole, not being able to hear, and like the drive back, we're taking every fucking side street you can imagine, left, right, left. And every time Dan tells me left or right, I have to ask him 3 times, huh? God damn it, Hess, you're never going to fire another AT4 again.
This is the second time that there's been some sort of like story about getting grounded from combat as a punishment. It's like you did. Like the tool of performance for a Marine in the infantry is like, well, God damn it, if you're not going to listen, you don't get to fight today.
It's hilarious.
All right, I got to do a comic relief because this is another, and if I don't tell you now, I'm going to forget. So one of the best memories, funniest memories, and we still to this day on the thread, it comes up probably at least once every, twice a year. We do our shifts up on the bridges, two Marines per, and Harris, I don't know if Harris and Pace were bridge buddies or not. Wait a second. List might have been Harris's bridge buddy. Anyways, Harris is on the canal bridge, and for whatever reason, he drops his Kevlar into the canal. But it's stuck. It's in an area where you can get it, right? So they get relieved after their 4 hours. And it's like Harris, like, he comes to the bottom that, where the fuck's your Kevlar? What, right? However it goes. And all I remember is him showing up at the Hooch and Santiago's hot. Oh man. So they made him, he had to shower and sleep with his Kevlar on. And I still remember going in to brush my teeth or whatever and just seeing Harris in the shower, washing his armpits, the water's just running down. He's got his Kevlar on and looking at him in the rack, sleeping with his Kevlar on. Because they got it out. Somehow they fished it out of there, so I don't know.
That's awesome.
The cleanest Kevlar in the company, man.
What about, look, I know you guys do this. I need one of your all's funniest stories you guys remember from your tour.
What do you got, Blake?
Oh man. Well, I don't know if I can't remember if this one's come up before, but we ended up having some tasers over there, and bored Marines are always a liability. And we decided to start tasing each other and seeing like how much it would hurt in this one spot or in this other spot. And I decided to volunteer to see if we could light up a fluorescent light bulb if I held onto the posts at the either end and then got tased in both arms and both legs to see if there would be enough current to turn the light on. it doesn't work. I just got fucking tased by 4 tasers, and
So what's it feel like?
but I will also say we decided to do it safely. I was in my silkies, but I was wearing a Kevlar and a flak jacket, because if you remember at that time, you were, for whatever reason, in your head, as long as you're wearing a Kevlar and a flak jacket, nothing would actually really hurt you.
That's right.
And so
That's right.
that was like a little that's so I was sitting in one of the chairs that we stole from the army, and I was sitting there holding on to the ends of it while I got hit in both legs and both arms. So
you doing that is the same as Happy Gilmore turning in the batting cage and taking the balls, you know.
Oh wait, and the second part to that is the other thing that we tried to find out is what would how far would it go through stuff. And I remember I put on my boots and then tased myself in the back of my heel to see if it would go through all the layers of leather. But what happened is that it didn't make enough of a connection where it hurt there, but I could feel the front part of my brain pulsing with the click 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 of the tape. But it didn't hurt anywhere else. But I could feel it in my head, and I was like, "Oh, this isn't good." That's and so.
Now you understand when the VA says not service connected. This is why, because they know what kind of shit you're doing.
This is the stuff when I think about movies. I think about some of the best content from our time over there is all of the funny shit.
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Endless
100%.
content.
Well,
my favorite is the Hooch stories, man. Fuck the war stories, honestly, at this point. Like they're great. I mean, I think they need to be told, but I get way more joy out of hearing the Hooch life stories.
Well, and you were talking about characters. Now you were in a small squad bay with a hell of a lot of characters. You had Pace, you had Garcia, who is weird as shit and definitely funny. And you had Pacheco and all these other, the guys that I knew, all crazy people. Not to say, you had all kinds of other people too that were hilarious.
So,
what other stuff you have?
Yeah, a lot of characters. As you mentioned, like Garcia, Garcia was the obvious funny, right? Like everybody knew he was a nut and funny, but like somebody that was sneaky funny, it was almost like it took him getting in a hooch and like being in a situation like this to be like, fuck it, I'm just going. It was Solis.
Oh yeah,
and Solis and Garcia together were nuts, man. But oh God, I remember this one time. Sergeant Santiago on his hooch, he didn't have a bunk above him, right? Like it was a bottom bunk with no top rack at all. And he put mosquito netting around his hooch. I guess he said there was bugs in there. I don't ever remember mosquitoes or anything in the hooch, but anyways, Jesse Stevens got in a fight with somebody. I don't know if it was Harrison or who, but they got in a fist fight and the blood went flying and got all over Santiago's mosquito net. Man, you should have heard his precious mosquito net. He was so fucking pissed off, like it's just the voices, right? You can still hear them in your head.
Right.
But no, you hit the nail on the head with Kevlar and flak jacket. You were invincible when you had that on. And so that's one of my biggest memories of hooch life is just like it almost feels like you spent half your time in your hooch in your underwear, skivvy shirt, flak jacket, and your Kevlar, like the little TV in the back, sitting on MRE boxes and sitting in your like your camping chairs, right? It's a lot of good memories. God, Gosh, I'm trying to think of like actually good stories though.
Well, I'm curious, what did you personally do to pass your time? Because some dudes played cards, some people watched movies, some people wrestled,
Yeah, yeah.
some people smoke cigarettes all day, every day.
So, the 4 years prior to joining, like I feel like I was late to the party with like LimeWire and music and everything.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed that a little bit prior to the military. So then over there, dude, I had an endless library of like access to people's CDs. So I was taking everyone's CDs and I took my laptop, everyone's burning it on my so I remember enjoying that, right?
Nice.
Like burning music, but loved watching movies with the guys. Um where my head goes with Hooch life is like I don't know about you guys, but for me, the number one thing that like for like to get through the heat and with being depleted of salts was Pringles. Pringles were like care packages, right? Like that was
Yeah.
a huge thing of
Uh-huh.
Hooch life, right? And like all the stuff being mailed, but it was like, oh, there was something about salty foods over there hit the spot with all of the salts you were losing and sweating out.
Yeah.
So it was Pringles and Gatorade, man. Those two things were like heaven. When that showed up in the Hooch, oh, you felt like you were getting something. You felt like it was a good day when you got that. Um, the other thing that sticks out though, when you ask like, what are people doing? Remember how everyone, not me, I wasn't a lifter. I enjoyed calisthenics, but like, man, people start hitting the gym, right? Like it didn't take long
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
to get bored out your butt. So the guys were lifting and um it's funny. I was a big runner prior to the military and had actually gotten out of shape during SOI and all the training you're doing, you
Mhm.
know, anyways, long story short, I started running a lot over there. You might have remember seeing me and Gutty
Yep.
running around the base, and that nut started putting a sandbag in his pack and running. We'd go run 6 miles. We'd do like 40 laps, run six
Mhm.
miles, and he'd do it with a sandbag.
That's
But it
awesome.
was it was nuts. We got so competitive over it. Like, we got mad a couple times where we didn't want to talk for a while because like we wanted to win that race that day. But like, and like, stuff like drafting. Like I would draft him until the last lap
That's
and then
awesome.
pass him.
That's good shit. You try to save a little of the gas tank just to beat him on the last lap.
um yeah, no, Hooch life, man, like that made it all worth it, right? Like that's what got you through.
Oh yeah.
Oh
uh
hell yeah. Absolutely.
what about well, I just need to listen to the podcast. That's what I need to do to hear about now I'm anxious to hear about what everybody else some of their stories.
I imagine it'll be interesting to you. Who was sending you care packages? Were you married at the time, or was it your mom and dad, or?
No, so I dated a girl all through college and broke up right at the end, and then right somewhere during SOI we got back together, and but a typical what do you call it, John?
Dear John letter.
Dear John,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So getting care packages left and right, and but I get it. Like but got the letter. I think it was on my birthday. um, but yeah, I'd say it was mostly her and her family. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then remember the trailer with the phone calls? That was a high. Remember calling cards back in the day? We
Oh, big
Oh
time.
yeah. Oh yes.
Oh,
AT&T
hundreds,
made $1 billion
hundreds.
off of us at least. I don't know about everybody else.
And then I still remember when I first linked up with the unit, there were still active payphones
Yeah.
Yeah.
right there on base.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That was how you called a cab because there was no Uber or anything. That's how you called a cab to get picked up at SOI.
I was a big money corporal. I paid for internet in my room, and I had a phone and internet, and
That's fancy living.
That's fancy living.
Yeah. I'm racking my head trying to think if I covered my bases on a couple stories I was wanting to tell you.
Well, I'll cue you up with a few things, and if you think of it, we can go back to it.
Yeah.
Do you remember winding down and trying to get out of there? The transition away from Ramadi?
Remember when we, the wind down period over at the Army base in those wooden boxes?
Yeah, Junction City.
Yeah,
CB houses.
What they call
CB
those?
houses.
Yeah, the CBs built those specifically for us or anybody who is transitioning through. We call them the CB huts or the CB houses. Yeah.
So however long that period was, I remember getting my hands on a Playboy and I'm flipping through it and it's this university edition. I'm like, hey, this is a girl I went to high school with. It's like, man, she looks great.
Well, especially at that point in your life.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah.
No, that sticks out. The CB houses. I think it was that whole thing of like, man, let's get home, right? Like you don't think you need to at the time. You just want to get home, right? So I remember that feeling slow. And just being happy, right? Like you're just pumped. You're like, man, like it's someone else's job now. Like we did our part. And I remember, what I do remember getting back on base, like we turned our weapons in, right? And didn't we march up to the parade deck?
Yeah.
I remember being bummed not having anyone there. Like I didn't have, any family or friends waiting on me. So I was always kind of, I felt really good for everyone else that had folks there and, to see the turnout, but that stuck out. But that's still kind of a fun memory, man, walking up there and like being cheered on like that. And just, that was cool. Yeah. I don't know though. I think I'd zoom out further. And like, for me, man, I really struggled like the first, 5-6 years being out, like it really sucked not being in a work environment with like the dudes, right? Like with your people. That's
100%.
I know I'm kind of like jumping further out from
No.
Go for that, man.
But that took some time to really, kind of just process through, right? Like you couldn't make it go away. It just lingered.
Yep.
I didn't, of course, a lot of guys became, firefighters or cops. And I think that, there was some degree of that, but you'll never replicate. You can't ever replicate it, no matter how hard you try.
No.
But yeah, I struggled with that, and I think I still do actually, like, miss it for sure. What else with,
Now you just did the 4 years. You got out in 2008.
Yep.
Or 2007, I guess, right after Barwana.
Yeah. I think I did what a lot of guys did. You save up enough time to, probably got out maybe a month early or so.
Yeah.
Nice.
But what was I going to tell you? Got out 2007. Yeah. No, I totally missed where I was headed.
I hijacked you. Sorry.
No, you're good, man. When did you wait? What about you guys? When did you get out? Was it right after?
It was
December 2004.
Okay. So it had to be really bittersweet for you guys. Like, like hell yeah.
Well, no. Well, I mean, yes, but I mean, I'll speak for myself. That was not good because there was no decompressing. And that first
Okay.
18 months to 2 years, all of '05, all of '06, if I was sober a day, I mean, that might have been just because I didn't get a paycheck. I didn't
Yeah.
have
Yeah.
time to buy my beer. But yeah, no, it was good to get out. Went to school and met my wife and stuff like that, but I was not in a good headspace.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Um, that's where I was headed earlier, was that man, I really, those last 6 months, I was really on the fence. It was like, man, do I stay in? Do I get out?
Mhm.
I remember that inner struggle. That was heavy and lasted a long period of time, you know. So um, the funny thing is, Southern California got to the point to where it felt more like home than my home on the East Coast, just
Hmm.
because of family drama, boundary issues, just
Sure.
what everybody's dealing with. And but the thing that tipped the scale for me deciding to get out was, my grandparents raised me, and I felt like I owed some time back to my grandmom for the 4 years I was gone. So that tipped the scale a little bit. I was like, let me get back and kind of, uh, you know, reconnect and all that. But that everyone has their story, right? Like that's a big part of it is getting out and reacclimating and yeah, man, I'm good to hear that, you were able to get through those couple years you're talking about. That, you know,
Yeah.
that's
Well,
a
it's been a
that's
journey. It wasn't just 2 years. That was just 2 years of in particular.
2 years of 20.
2 years of, yeah.
Uh-huh.
It was, there's quite a few stories from that time period that I'm not, well, there's stories, let's just put it that way. But it's taken me, quite a few years to even get, I'm in a much better headspace and emotional space now. Fortunately, I'm getting married and having kids. Having kids was a big part of me being like, man, I got to get my head screwed on straight here. Otherwise, I want to be a good dad. And if I wanted to, I would have not been able to show up like I want to. So,
Yeah, 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 yeah. Uh, how like profanity is just a part of the culture. It's
yeah.
funny. Like, and I grew up around it like as a kid, and so it was in my DNA, but it was like the moment I had kids, it was like a light switch. It was weird how kids are, the factor for so many things, right?
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
My kids are getting a little older, not old yet. I have a 15-year-old and a 11-year-old, almost 12. And I swear in front of them now, but I did not up until this point. And so it was like, ooh, I get to do it again. It's been 15 years.
I can properly convey my thoughts now.
Yeah, that's right.
yeah, 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 yeah. Oh man. No, this has been a pretty awesome exercise of just, when you really dial in, it's like, dang, there's things that I haven't thought about, and then hear you guys talk about things that I haven't thought about in so long.
Well, it's a good transition to my next question. While we're kind of rolling into about 2 hours, been 2 hours. Uh, Looking back 22 years now, almost 22 years on the dot. Today is March 8th. So you rolled across the LOD sometime around now, 22 years ago. Uh, what does all this mean to you? What do you tell people about it?
About this time period back then.
About Ramadi specifically, or your
Yeah,
Marine Corps career at large, either one.
yeah. Like it dawned on me probably sometime within the last year, like that was an adventure, man. Even though it comes at an awful price, right?
Yeah.
Like such an awful price, but what an adventure. And there's guilt. Anytime I feel like that, I feel guilty
Mm.
for feeling like that, right?
Hmm.
But like it goes back to what I said earlier about you'll never be able to replicate those years again.
Not even close.
And we spend so much of our life trying to do it, right? And thinking that maybe it's possible. But the older I've gotten, those were just amazing years, and I hate that it came at such an expense. And the two reunions have been very therapeutic.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. But when people tell me thank you, like I tell them, I thank them and tell them it was a privilege. Like I feel privileged that I was able to be a part of that time period, Yeah, man. How do you guys, what, let me hear you answer that question. I'm intrigued to hear what you guys have to say.
Neither of us try to make this podcast about us in any episode, but I'll give you mine. I'll leave Blake and stay off the hook for this one. I've struggled with it for 20 years, no different than I think anybody else. I've said many of the same things that you've said just now and over the course of the last couple hours. It is quite literally the absolute best times of my life and the absolute worst all at the same time. It side by side, sometimes even in the same day, sometimes even within a couple hours of each other. I struggled after getting out of the Marine Corps with exactly what you just said. I never could find another work environment like that. I can never find another interpersonal environment like that. I've never made friends like I've made in that moment. Blake is a perfect example. We have been best friends since then, and I imagine unless I die tomorrow, we will be for another 20 years. It won't change. It's something that other people can't understand, living that close to mortality, what it does to your memories and your feelings and your life going forward. And as you used a perfectly poetic phrase, what an awful cost for such a beautiful gift. I would agree with that 1,000%.
Yeah. Yeah, no, like, yeah, it's why I'm an accountant, is because I'm pretty shitty with words. But like you tied it up in a pretty good bow there. Like that's, yeah. Yep. I echo those sentiments 100%, man.
Nice, man.
I really appreciate what you guys are doing. This is powerful stuff.
Thanks, man.
I appreciate you coming on and sharing your part. I know everybody has different levels of comfort with it, and we definitely have some of our guys that we're having to encourage a little bit more than others, and it's always nice to be able to have. I appreciate how willingly and how well you shared all of your stuff. So thank you.
Yeah, man, It's been good. And it's been good to catch up. I always liked you. So that's why same thing I told you when I messaged you. Like, I always fucking liked you. Just come talk to me.
If you like what you heard, make sure you subscribe for future episodes on your favorite podcast service.